Marcus Rivera kept his head down as he walked through the crowded hallways of Lincoln High School, his worn leather messenger bag slung across his shoulder. At 17, he was lean and wiry, standing about 5'9", with dark hair that fell across his forehead and deep brown eyes that seemed to absorb everything while revealing nothing. 3 weeks into his junior year at this new school, and he was still the outsider, the transfer student from across the country who spoke softly and ate lunch alone. The morning sun streamed through the tall windows of the main corridor as students rushed to their first period classes. Marcus navigated through the chaos with practiced efficiency, keeping to the walls and avoiding eye contact. He had learned this survival technique at his previous schools. Stay invisible, don't make waves. It was easier that way. But invisibility, Marcus had discovered, was not always protection. Well, look what we have here. The voice belonged to Tyler Brennan, Lincoln High's star linebacker and undisputed king of the social hierarchy. Tyler stood 6'2" with broad shoulders that filled out his varsity jacket, sandy blonde hair perfectly styled, and the kind of confident smirk that came from never having his authority questioned. Beside him stood his two most loyal followers, Jake Morrison, lean and mean with calculating green eyes, and Connor Walsh, stocky and aggressive, with hands that looked like they enjoyed making fists. Marcus felt his muscles tense instinctively, but he forced himself to keep walking. Just keep moving. Don't engage. It's not worth it. Hey, new boy, I'm talking to you. Tyler's voice carried that particular tone of menace that made other students unconsciously step aside and look away. The hallway had grown quieter, conversations dropping to whispers as everyone sensed the potential for drama. Marcus stopped walking. He turned slowly, his expression carefully neutral. Yeah. Tyler's smirk widened. Yeah? That's it? No hello, Tyler, or good morning, Tyler. Where are your manners, transfer boy? Jake laughed, a sharp sound that echoed off the lockers. Maybe they don't teach manners where he comes from. What was it again? Some ghetto school in California? Deep breath. Count to 10. Walk away. Marcus had promised his father he would avoid trouble at this school. Starting over meant exactly that. Starting over. No more problems. No more calls from principals. No more disappointed looks from his mother when she had to leave work early for another conference about her son's behavioral issues. I was just heading to class, Marcus said quietly, adjusting his grip on his messenger bag. Oh, were you? Tyler stepped closer, and Marcus caught the scent of expensive cologne mixed with the artificial smell of protein shakes. Well, here's the thing, Rivera. This is my hallway, my school, and I don't remember giving you permission to use it. Connor snorted with laughter. Permission. I like that. The crowd of students had formed a loose circle now, pretending to organize their lockers or check their phones while obviously listening to every word. Marcus recognized the pattern, the setup, the audience, the systematic destruction of dignity that Bullies perfected like an art form. He had seen it before. Hell, he had lived it before. But this time would be different. This time he would not let them push him too far, just not today. Sorry, Marcus said, though the word tasted like ash in his mouth. I'll go around. Tyler's hand shot out and grabbed Marcus's shoulder, stopping him mid-turn. I didn't say you could leave yet. The contact sent a flash of white-hot anger through Marcus's chest, and for just a moment, his carefully controlled facade cracked. His body shifted almost imperceptibly, weight dropping to his balls of his feet, shoulders squaring, hands moving to a more balanced position. It was subtle, but it was there. Tyler didn't notice. Neither did Jake or Connor, but someone else did. Mrs. Patterson, the chemistry teacher, appeared at the edge of the circle like a referee stepping into a boxing ring. Gentlemen, the bell rang 2 minutes ago. I suggest you all find your way to class before you find yourselves in detention. Tyler's hand dropped from Marcus's shoulder, but his eyes never left Marcus's face. "This conversation isn't over, Rivera." "Looking forward to it," Marcus replied quietly, though every instinct screamed at him to say something very different, something that would end this conversation permanently. As the crowd dispersed and Tyler swaggered away with his entourage, Marcus stood alone in the hallway for a moment, breathing deeply. He rolled his shoulders once, twice, feeling the tension in his muscles like coiled springs waiting to be released. "Not today," he reminded himself. "But if they keep pushing..." The thought trailed off as Marcus headed to his first period AP history class, where he would spend the next 50 minutes trying to concentrate on the American Revolution, while his mind replayed every second of the hallway encounter. He slumped into his seat in the back row, pulled out his notebook, and tried to focus on Mr. Henderson's lecture about colonial resistance to British taxation. The irony was not lost on him. During lunch, Marcus found his usual spot at a table near the back corner of the cafeteria, where he could observe the complex social ecosystem of Lincoln High while remaining largely invisible. The cafeteria was divided into clear territories. Athletes dominated the center tables, cheerleaders and popular girls claimed the area near the windows, drama kids clustered around the vending machines, and various other cliques staked out their respective territories with the precision of military strategists. Marcus had just unwrapped his turkey sandwich when Tyler and his crew appeared at his table. "Mind if we sit?" Tyler asked, though he was already pulling out a chair. Jake and Connor flanked him like bodyguards, creating an intimidating triangle around Marcus's small table. "Free country," Marcus replied, though his jaw tightened slightly. "That's what I like about you, Rivera," Tyler said, settling into his chair with exaggerated casualness. "You're so agreeable. It's refreshing, really. Most people in this school have opinions, attitudes. But you just go with the flow." Jake opened a bag of chips with an unnecessarily loud crunch. "It's like having a pet. A quiet, well-behaved pet." Connor laughed. "Does he do tricks too?" Marcus continued eating his sandwich, chewing slowly and deliberately. In his peripheral vision, he could see other students glancing over, some with curiosity, others with the uncomfortable expression people wore when witnessing something they knew was wrong, but had no intention of stopping. "You know what I think?" Tyler leaned forward, his voice dropping to a mock confidential whisper. "I think you're scared. I think underneath all that quiet, mysterious new kid act, you're just another coward who's too afraid to stand up for himself." The sandwich turned to cardboard in Marcus's mouth, but he kept chewing. "Am I right?" Tyler pressed. "Are you scared of me, Rivera?" Marcus swallowed, took a sip of his water, and looked Tyler directly in the eyes for the first time since the confrontation began. "No," he said simply. The single word hung in the air between them like a challenge. Tyler's confident smirk faltered slightly. "No, no," Marcus repeated, his voice calm and steady. "I'm not scared of you." Jake and Connor exchanged glances. This wasn't going according to their usual script. Tyler recovered quickly, his smirk returning full force. "Well then, if you're not scared, maybe you'd like to prove it. There's a party this Friday at Connor's house. His parents are out of town. Why don't you come by? Show everyone how tough you really are." It was a trap, and they all knew it. The kind of setup that would either result in Marcus being publicly humiliated or beaten up, probably both. The smart move would be to decline politely and continue avoiding confrontation. But something had shifted in Marcus during this conversation. Some internal line had been crossed. "Sure," he said, "I'll be there." Tyler blinked, clearly not expecting acceptance. "Great. Great. Friday night, 8 o'clock. Don't bring any friends. Oh, wait, you don't have any." The three of them stood to leave, but Tyler paused and looked back. "Oh, and Rivera." Wear something nice. Wouldn't want you to feel underdressed for your own humiliation." After they left, Marcus sat alone with his half-eaten sandwich and thought about promises. He had made a promise to his father about avoiding trouble. He had made a promise to his mother about staying out of fights. He had made a promise to himself about starting fresh at Lincoln High. But some promises, Marcus was beginning to realize, were harder to keep than others. The rest of the week passed in a strange kind of suspended tension. Tyler and his friends didn't bother Marcus directly, but their presence was always there, a whispered comment in the hallway, laughter that followed him into classrooms, the subtle but unmistakable message that something was coming. Marcus found himself falling back into old patterns despite his best efforts. In his bedroom each night, he would go through the forms his father had taught him, the precise, flowing movements of mixed martial arts that had been as much a part of his childhood as learning to ride a bike, jab, cross, hook, check kick, sprawl. The muscle memory was still there, sharp and reliable after years of training. His father, Diego Rivera, had been a professional MMA fighter before a torn ACL ended his career and pushed him into coaching. Marcus had grown up in gyms, learning footwork before he could properly tie his shoes, understanding leverage and timing before he understood algebra. By the time he was 15, he could hold his own against men twice his size. But fighting professionally and fighting in high school were two very different things. One was sport, the other was trouble. "The most dangerous fighter is the one nobody knows can fight," his father used to say. "Surprise is the most powerful weapon you have." Friday arrived with unseasonable warmth, and Marcus found himself standing on Connor Walsh's front porch at exactly 8 o'clock. The house was a sprawling suburban monument with manicured lawns and a 3-car garage. Music pounded from inside, and Marcus could see silhouettes moving past the windows, a typical teenage party in full swing. He almost turned around and left. Instead, he rang the doorbell. Connor opened the door with a red plastic cup in his hand and a surprised expression on his face. Holy shit, he actually showed up. The announcement carried over the music, and Marcus felt the party's energy shift as heads turned in his direction. He stepped inside, taking in the scene. Maybe 40 or 50 students crowded into the living room and kitchen, classic house party chaos with the furniture pushed against the walls and everyone trying too hard to look like they were having more fun than they actually were. Tyler emerged from the kitchen with his trademark smirk firmly in place. "Rivera, glad you could make it. Can I get you a drink? Something to calm your nerves?" "I'm good," Marcus replied, scanning the room and noting the exits, the furniture placement, the potential obstacles. Old habits. "Come on, don't be antisocial. It's a party." Tyler gestured toward the center of the room, where a circle of students had formed around what appeared to be some kind of game. "We were just about to play a little game. Perfect timing." Marcus recognized several faces from school, some curious, some uncomfortable, all watching to see what would happen next. He also recognized the setup. Whatever this game was, it wasn't going to be fun for him. But backing down now would only make things worse. At Lincoln High, reputation was everything, and cowardice was a stain that never washed out. "What kind of game?" Marcus asked. Tyler's grin widened. "Simple. It's called trust. Two people stand face to face, and one person has to trust that the other person won't hurt them. It's all about building relationships, you know, breaking down barriers." Jake held up a red bandana. "One person gets blindfolded, the other person, well, let's just say they test how much trust is really there." The circle of students had grown larger now, forming an impromptu arena. Marcus could feel the anticipation in the room. The collective held breath of dozens of teenagers who sensed violence approaching like a storm on the horizon. "Sounds fun," Marcus said quietly. "Who goes first?" Tyler's eyebrows rose slightly. "Well, since you're the guest of honor, I thought you should have the privilege." Jake here will be your partner." Marcus looked at Jake Morrison, lean, mean, and already flexing his knuckles with anticipation. Then he looked around the circle of faces, seeing everything he had seen at every school he had ever attended. The excitement of spectators at a gladiator match, the careful distance maintained by those who didn't want to get involved, the predatory satisfaction of bullies who thought they had found easy prey. "This is it," he thought. "This is where I make the choice." He could put on the blindfold and let Jake humiliate him in front of half the school. He could endure whatever physical punishment they had planned, laugh it off, and maybe earn enough respect through suffering to be left alone for the rest of the year. Or he could do something else entirely. "Actually," Marcus said, his voice carrying clearly over the music, "I have a better idea." The room went quiet. Even the music seemed to fade into the background. "What if we make it more interesting?" Marcus continued, rolling up the sleeves of his flannel shirt with deliberate casualness. "What if we play a different game?" Tyler's confident expression flickered slightly. "What kind of game?" Marcus smiled for the first time since arriving at the party. It was not a particularly friendly smile. "Let's call it consequences." Before anyone could react, Marcus moved. Years of training condensed into a single moment of explosive action. He stepped forward inside Jake's reach and delivered a precise uppercut to the solar plexus that lifted Jake off his feet and sent him crashing backwards into the circle of students. Jake hit the ground hard and stayed there, gasping like a fish out of water. The room erupted into chaos, screams, shouts, the sound of plastic cups hitting the floor. But Marcus wasn't finished. Connor charged forward with a wild haymaker that Marcus slipped easily, responding with a sharp elbow to Connor's ribs, followed by a knee to his midsection. Connor doubled over and Marcus finished with a controlled push that sent him stumbling backward into the entertainment center. Tyler stood frozen for a moment, his mouth hanging open in disbelief. Then rage took over, and he rushed forward with all the subtlety of an angry bull. Marcus sidestepped Tyler's charge and caught him with a leg sweep that sent the star linebacker crashing to the ground. Before Tyler could recover, Marcus was on top of him, one knee pressed into Tyler's chest and his forearm across Tyler's throat. Not enough to choke him, but enough to make the point crystal clear. "Here's how this is going to work," Marcus said quietly, his voice somehow carrying to every corner of the suddenly silent room. "You're going to leave me alone. You're not going to mess with me at school. You're not going to whisper about me in the hallways. You're not going to look at me funny. You're going to pretend I don't exist." Tyler struggled weakly against Marcus's hold, his face red from exertion and humiliation. "Do you understand me?" Marcus continued, "because if you don't, if you decide you want to keep playing these little games, I promise you it will not end well for you." This was me being nice. Tyler nodded frantically, unable to speak with Marcus's forearm across his throat. Marcus stood up and looked around the circle of stunned faces. Jake was still on the ground, clutching his stomach and making small, whimpering sounds. Connor sat against the wall, holding his ribs and staring at Marcus with a mixture of fear and disbelief. "Anyone else want to play a game?" Marcus asked conversationally. The silence stretched for several seconds before someone in the back of the room started clapping. Then someone else joined in. Within moments, half the room was applauding while the other half stood in shocked silence. Marcus straightened his shirt, ran a hand through his hair, and walked toward the front door. He paused at the threshold and looked back at Tyler, who was sitting up but still struggling to catch his breath. "Thanks for the party," Marcus said. "I had fun." The following Monday morning, Lincoln High felt different. Marcus noticed it immediately as he walked through the front doors. The subtle shift in energy, the way conversations paused when he passed, the respectful nods from students who had previously ignored him completely. He was no longer invisible. In the hallway where Tyler had first confronted him 3 weeks earlier, Marcus found himself walking down the center rather than along the walls. Students stepped aside naturally, not out of fear exactly, but out of a newfound respect for personal space that hadn't existed before Friday night. Tyler was at his locker, moving carefully and avoiding eye contact. Jake and Connor flanked him as always, but their posture was different, defensive rather than aggressive, diminished rather than threatening. As Marcus passed them, Tyler looked up briefly. Their eyes met for just a moment, and Marcus saw something he had never seen there before: acknowledgement. Not friendship, not even particularly friendliness, but the recognition of one person who understood exactly where they stood with another. Tyler nodded slightly. Marcus nodded back. It wasn't an apology, but it was acceptance. During lunch, Marcus found himself approached by students he had never spoken to before. Sarah Martinez from his history class asked if she could sit at his table. David Kim from chemistry asked about his weekend. Rachel Torres from English lit invited him to study group on Thursday. For the first time since arriving at Lincoln High, Marcus didn't eat lunch alone. "So," Sarah said as she unwrapped her salad, "I heard you know martial arts." Marcus took a bite of his sandwich and considered his response. "I know some things." "That's so cool," David said. "How long have you been training?" "Since I was little. My dad taught me." Rachel leaned forward with interest. "Is he a martial arts teacher?" "He was a professional fighter," Marcus said simply. "Now he coaches." "That explains a lot," Sarah said with a grin. "Tyler and his friends have been walking around like they've seen a ghost." Marcus felt a slight twinge of concern. "Are people scared of me now?" The three of them exchanged glances and David spoke up. "Honestly, some people are, but not in a bad way, you know. More like respectful scared. Like they know you could hurt them if you wanted to, but you won't unless they give you a reason." "Tyler had it coming," Rachel added. "He's been bullying people since middle school. Someone needed to put him in his place." "I didn't want to hurt anyone," Marcus said quietly. "I just wanted them to leave me alone. And now they will," Sarah said with satisfaction, "along with everyone else who might have been thinking about messing with you." Over the following weeks, Marcus found himself settling into his new status at Lincoln High. Teachers who had barely noticed him before now remembered his name. Students in his classes included him in group projects without being asked. The hallways that had once felt like hostile territory became simply places to walk between classes. Tyler and his friends kept their distance, but there was no ongoing tension. If anything, Tyler seemed almost relieved to have the decision made for him. Without the need to constantly establish and maintain dominance, he appeared to be discovering other aspects of his personality, joining the debate team, volunteering for the school's tutoring program, even being pleasant to underclassmen. Marcus never found out if Tyler's transformation was genuine or simply strategic, but he found he didn't particularly care. The important thing was that it worked. One afternoon, about a month after the party, Marcus was leaving school when he noticed a group of older students surrounding a freshman near the bike racks. The kid was small and nervous-looking, clutching his backpack like a shield, while three upperclassmen made increasingly aggressive demands for his lunch money. Marcus paused at the edge of the parking lot, watching the scene unfold. This wasn't his problem. The freshman would have to find his own way, just like Marcus had, just like everyone did, eventually. But as he watched the kid's face, the fear, the humiliation, the desperate hope that someone, anyone, might intervene, Marcus found himself remembering what it felt like to eat lunch alone, to walk through hallways like a ghost, to go to sleep angry and wake up dreading the day ahead. "Hey," Marcus called out, approaching the group with casual confidence. "What's going on over here?" The three upperclassmen turned toward him, and Marcus saw recognition flicker across their faces. His reputation, apparently, had spread beyond Tyler's immediate circle. "Nothing, Rivera," one of them said quickly. "Just talking to our friend here about homework." Marcus looked at the freshman, who was staring at him with the expression of someone who had just seen a miracle. "Is that right? You need help with homework?" The kid nodded frantically. Yeah. I really need help with math." "Great," Marcus said, putting an arm around the freshman's shoulders. "I'm pretty good at math. Why don't we go work on it in the library?" The three upperclassmen exchanged glances, clearly wanting to object, but unwilling to challenge Marcus directly. After a moment of awkward silence, they wandered off toward the student parking lot, muttering under their breath about minding their own business. "Thank you," the freshman said quietly as Marcus walked him toward the school building. "I'm Tommy Reeves. Marcus Rivera. And you don't have to thank me." "Yes, I do," Tommy insisted. "Those guys have been bothering me for weeks, taking my lunch money, pushing me around, making me do their homework. I was starting to think about switching schools." Marcus stopped walking and looked at Tommy seriously. "Listen to me. You can't let them chase you away. This is your school too. You have just as much right to be here as they do." "Easy for you to say," Tommy replied with a weak smile. "You're not afraid of anyone." Marcus was quiet for a moment, considering how to respond. "I'm afraid of plenty of things," he said finally, "but I'm more afraid of what happens when you let people walk all over you. It doesn't get better if you run. It just follows you to the next place." Tommy nodded thoughtfully. "So what do I do? I can't fight like you can." "Fighting isn't always the answer," Marcus said, though he recognized the irony of the statement. "Sometimes it is, but usually there are other options. Tell a teacher, tell your parents, make noise, get help, don't suffer in silence." "What if none of that works?" Marcus smiled slightly. "Then you come find me." 3 months into the school year, Marcus had found his equilibrium at Lincoln High. He had friends now, real friends, not just people who were afraid to cross him. His grades were solid, his teachers respected him, and the daily stress of navigating hostile territory had evaporated. He still trained every evening in his bedroom, maintaining the skills and discipline his father had taught him. But now, it felt more like meditation than preparation for war. The transformation hadn't turned him into a different person. It had simply allowed him to become more fully himself. The quiet confidence had always been there, buried under layers of defensive posturing and survival instincts. Now it could emerge naturally, without the constant need to prove or protect anything. Tyler passed him in the hallway that afternoon, and they exchanged their usual brief nod of acknowledgement. No words, no drama, just two people who understood each other perfectly and had found a way to coexist in the same space. As Marcus headed to his locker at the end of the day, he reflected on the strange mathematics of respect. Fighting Tyler and his friends hadn't made him more violent. It had actually made his life more peaceful. Standing up for himself hadn't turned him into a bully. It had given him the freedom to be kind. The lesson wasn't that violence solved problems, but that sometimes refusing to be a victim was the only way to stop the cycle of victimization. Tommy Reeves appeared at his elbow as Marcus gathered his books for the day. Over the past month, the freshman had grown more confident, walking taller and speaking up in class. The 3 upperclassmen hadn't bothered him since that day in the parking lot. "Hey Marcus," Tommy said. "You heading home?" "Yeah, just grabbing my stuff." "Cool. Want to grab a burger or something? I'll buy as a thank you for all the help with math." Marcus grinned. "Sure, but you don't owe me anything." "I know," Tommy said, "but I want to." As they walked out of the school together, Marcus felt something he hadn't experienced in years. Contentment. Not happiness exactly, but a deep sense of being exactly where he belonged, exactly who he was supposed to be. The bullies had made their choice when they decided to target the quiet new kid. They had assumed that silence meant weakness, that keeping to himself meant he was afraid. They had been wrong, and now everyone knew it.